Hello, welcome everyone. This is Kate from Omnitracs. Thank you so much for joining us today for our webcast. We are talking about how to stop burning fleet dollars and start gaining productivity. So at this time, just a few administrative reminders. You have joined our session in a listen-only mode. We ask that you type any questions that you have throughout into the chat section or the Q&A section, and we will be sure to address those following the presentation. We will also be recording this and sharing with everyone following the event. So at this time, I'm going to introduce today's presenter, Ms. Cindy Brandt. She is our Senior Director here at Omnitracs RoadNet. She's got over 17 years in the fleet management industry, and she truly loves motorcycle riding and has a need for speed. So Cindy, go ahead and take it away today.
Great. Thank you very much, Kate. So today, what I really want to talk to folks about really are some of the everyday fleet dollar challenges that we have. Today there's kind of four key areas where we see significant fleet challenges. Number one, people always want to save on fuel. Fuel's been relatively volatile over the last 5 to 10 years, and quite frankly, we still don't know where it is. So that's always kind of in the forefront of our mind. Second is maintenance costs. No matter what we do, maintenance costs are a constant within our organizations. 3, make on-time deliveries because no customer likes their product late. And 4th, really truly become safer. And what I want to show you guys today is that there really is a key equation that exists. And that key equation is really about how you save fuel, how you save on maintenance costs, and how that will add up for safety. But before we get there, what I'd like to do first is just take a very quick poll. Of these 4 items on your screen, on-time delivery, driver safety, vehicle maintenance, and fuel costs, which one of these is your absolute biggest challenge? If you just go ahead and click on one of the radio buttons, we'll wait about 5 or 6 seconds here and just let the poll results come in. All right, we're going to wrap up the poll and move on. And it looks like vehicle maintenance right now is the big winner today, followed closely in second place with both driver safety and fuel costs. Well, that's great because, we're going to talk about all 3 of those top items because that's where we feel that telematics really can have the biggest bang for the buck. And like I said before, there's really this key equation. If I can save on fuel plus reduce my maintenance costs, it truly, believe it or not, equals safety. And when I say that, it's important because we're going to show you how to use some of the different techniques and where these key problems are costing you money, how they're actually costing you money. But if you do just a couple of things, reduce a couple of things inside your fleet, you're going to figure out how you can A, save money, and B, be incredibly safe. So let's jump to our first one here and talk about saving fuel. Well, there's 4 ways we can save fuel that are pretty easy. 1, you can simply drive fewer miles. I'm pretty sure that people want to grow their business, and by growing their business typically means that you're not going to reduce your miles, you're probably going to increase them. Second, I can idle less. Idling is a huge consumer of fuel. Of course, we know there's good idling and bad idling. Of course, there's good idling when we're talking about PTOs, maybe even warming up a little bit in the morning when it's super cold out in some of the northern territories. But, idling at the end of the day is a very expensive endeavor. Second, we can speed less. The coefficient of drag rapidly increases as we continue to speed. So it's actually much more difficult for the vehicle to plow through the air. And as we increase the force and the work that the vehicle has to do, well, we consume more fuel. And last but not least, we can buy newer trucks. All the new trucks out there are making significant gains and increases in how many miles per gallon they can travel. We look at some of the older vehicles that we see in some of our customers' fleets, some of them are as low as 5 miles per gallon, and some of the newer ones are as high as 10, 11, or even 12 miles per gallon. So maintenance is another key area, and there's, to me, 2 key things that we can do to save on maintenance. One is really understand the impact of rough driving, so harsh braking, rapid acceleration, harsh cornering. These are all things that actually increase the speed at which we use consumable products on our vehicles, tires, brakes, anything that we replace on a fairly regular basis. And of course, idling. I'm going to show you a little bit of math a little bit later in the presentation just on how terrible idling is. And if there's one behavior that I would say that I'd like to try to completely eliminate from most fleets, it would be idling, because it's not only the consumption of fuel, it's the accelerated rate at which you need to do maintenance. So let's go ahead and break down idling a little bit more. What's wrong with it? Well, we talked about the cost of fuel. That's a given, right? We also know that idling wastes 6 billion gallons of fuel every single year across all industries. Idling is not just in wholesale distributors or home and business services. It's in heavy equipment. It's in long-haul trucking. It's even in the vehicles that we drive every day when we drop Johnny off in the morning at school. As we continue to idle, we're going to increase petroleum consumption and also reliability on resources that they can't renew themselves. Coal doesn't regrow. Oil doesn't regrow. All these petroleum-based products, they have to come from somewhere, and we have to find that petroleum. And of course, engine wear is increased maintenance costs. I'm going to show you, like I said, a calculation a little bit later just about how detrimental idling is and how many miles an hour of idling really represents. And of course, three of the things that to me are kind of no-brainers: air pollution and noise, which leads to legal restrictions. I have a great map I'm going to throw up here in a second, but there's so many idling laws, and they're not just by state, they're by county or city or municipal area. They've really gotten to be very granular with some of these idling laws and who can and cannot idle and for what reasons. So let's look at the facts of idling. So the first is time. This is a nice study that was done in 2015 by the Work Truck Association. And what this shows us is that on average, 2/3 of the vehicles idle at least 1 hour a day, but most 2 hours a day. And the other third is idling somewhere between a high 3 to over 4 hours per day. And I would say in a delivery scenario, in wholesale distribution, these numbers are actually a little bit lower. We tend to see about 80% service time and 20% drive time. And that service time, if it's 80% of a 10-hour route, that could be up to 8 hours of idling. I'm not saying that it is all the time, but it certainly could be. States, cities, municipalities, towns, these are all states that have laws on the books. And you can see there's only 4 states, simply four states that have no idling laws whatsoever within them. But to me, what's scary is that these idling fines can be anywhere from $25 to $10,000, or even more if you have subsequent infractions. And it's a complete, total wide range between state laws, city laws, municipals, townships. They're all different types. And it's incredible if you even look at it within the states that have idling laws, it's not even consistent about what is deemed okay for idling. Sometimes it's heating and cooling. Sometimes it's sleeping. Sometimes it's running your reefer. Sometimes it isn't running your reefer. It's very confusing to understand. So, at the same time, it's a lot easier to say, you know what, I'm just going to reduce idling out there. And my last idling key fact that I really have here is about how much fuel does it burn. So again, from Argonne National Laboratory, it's a very well-respected organization that does a lot of research into vehicles and how they use petroleum products. This is right up there, just about a gallon an hour. So for every hour that you idle, a gallon of fuel is being wasted. I hear all the time, hey, Cindy, we don't have an idling problem. And I say, okay, that's great. But then when you drill right down into it, a lot of times these idling governors that they have, they simply don't work. Or the firmware on the engine's been updated and it's created yet another problem. And because they don't even know that there is a problem, they're burning hundreds of gallons of fuel across their entire fleet. The second major area that they see where they don't realize that they're idling is yard movements. I've seen vehicles loaded at 12 o'clock at night, or 12 o'clock in the morning rather, and they sit and idle in the yard until someone picks them up at 5 o'clock. I mean, that's a tremendous, tremendous amount of fuel that you're wasting every day, 5 gallons of fuel every day. So what are the top reasons from energy.gov that folks actually concentrate on targeting idling? Well, first and foremost is fuel savings. Second is engine maintenance, and third is government compliance. So we've talked about all three of those things, and energy.gov here did some research for us to actually validate that, which is nice. So how much does idling really and truly cost you? This was pretty surprising to me when I found these stats from Ford. And they're talking about their work trucks. So 1 hour of idle time, believe it or not, is actually worth about 25 miles worth of driving. Or, as we said earlier, a gallon per hour of diesel fuel. What concerns me here is that when you start to really think about doing some math on maintenance. So I went ahead and actually figured out some math on an oil filter. So typically you change an oil filter every 5,000 miles or 200 engine hours or 250 gallons of fuel or 3 months, kind of whichever one comes first. So we made a couple of assumptions, and that we do 50 miles of driving and 6 hours of idling each day. So that means that if I have 5,000 miles divided by 50 miles per day, so I'm supposed to do 5,000 miles to change that oil filter, I should change an oil filter in 100 days if I hit my 5,000 miles first. Okay, that makes sense. I get it. But if I think about my impact when I add idling in, so 6 hours of idling is equal to 25 driven miles. So I take my 5,000 miles, and that really translates into 20,000 miles on the engine because I was idling so much. And I think that to me that's what's really, really disconcerting. So if you think about, 100 days of engine wear is actually 20,000 miles worth of wear when you're idling at a pretty high rate throughout the day. And some people will say 6 hours of idling is high. I say it's pretty average for a lot of these folks out here that are doing delivery. And again, we already said this, so I'm going to continue to reinforce it, that an hour of idle time is worth about a gallon of fuel. So if we look at that from a yearly perspective and kind of do some math here, if we have 261 valid delivery days throughout the year, and let's say we go on the very conservative side this time, and say that you only have 1.5 hours of idling a day, with the U.S. average on diesel last week at $2.15, almost 16 cents, and I have 100 vehicles in play, that's going to show me that I have $783 in annual fuel costs per vehicle in idling. That's pretty expensive if I just idle 3 hours of idling a day. So, we look at conservative numbers here, and it starts to get even scarier. But the scariest statistic, in my book, is that 30% of vehicles are stolen because the keys are in the ignition. And I'm pretty sure that if you idle, the keys have to be in the ignition. We've seen drivers make copies of keys. We've seen drivers do all kinds of things, but more often than not, I'm able to walk up to one of my customers' trucks that's idling, open the door, and pull the keys out. So, it's something to think about here, that 30% of commercial vehicles that are stolen have the keys in the ignition. So let's go ahead now and jump topics and talk about speed and why speed is important to look at. So why shouldn't you speed? Well, number one, it increases fuel usage. There's a little bit of science behind that. Thank God for physics. As a vehicle moves, it has to push air out of the way. And about 40% of the vehicle's energy is actually used to push that air away from it. As you increase speed, resistance increases, which increases the amount of energy that the vehicle has to expend to push that air, which ultimately results in increased fuel usage. So you're making your engine work harder to push the vehicle through the air at the same rate. The second is vehicle velocity versus human capabilities. We're going to delve down into human capabilities in a couple of slides, but it's important to think about the fact that as humans, we have a finite reaction time, and when we are speeding, we diminish our ability to react in a timely fashion. So some more math for us. 1 mile per hour increase in speed, it yields about a 4.8% increase in accidents. Why? Because our human capabilities. We have to have a longer reaction time the faster that we're going. And of course, increasing your speed decreases your miles per gallon. We've talked about that a couple of times. So let's do some math, my favorite thing today. If we know that a 1 mile an hour increase in road speed equals a 0.1 or a tenth of a mile a gallon increase in fuel consumption, well, what happens if we travel 10 miles per hour faster? Well, if I travel at just 10 miles an hour faster, from 50 miles an hour to 60 miles an hour, I'm now 8% less fuel efficient. At 70 miles an hour, I'm now 24% less fuel efficient. And I think 70 is really kind of the sweet spot where a lot of our drivers, when they get on the highway, tend to drive. And I think that this is a very telling statistic. But if they get as high as 80 miles an hour, that's actually a 40% decrease in fuel efficiency. So delving down into the math a little bit further, we know at 60 miles an hour and I get 10 miles per gallon, I'm 8% in lower fuel efficiency, which means I only get 9.2 miles per gallon. That's a little over $1,000 in wasted fuel costs per year per vehicle. So if I look at 70 miles an hour in this same scenario, being 24% less efficient, now I'm only getting 7.6 miles per gallon, which is closer to $3,700 a year in wasted fuel expense per vehicle. So, I mean, you can see speeding gets very expensive very quickly. I am not, however, suggesting that every vehicle should get on the highways and do 50 miles an hour. I think that's also unsafe. I think that there's a safe medium in between, 55 to 65 miles an hour that drivers really can be actually driving on those freeways. And then, the speed just really doesn't have the time benefit there at all. So let's talk about human capabilities now. So reaction time. So our average reaction time to anything is 2.3 seconds. And I think 2.3 seconds, especially when I am on the spin bike in the morning, seems like an awfully long time, or I'm running on the treadmill. It seems like an awfully long time. But in reality, it's an incredibly short time. In 2.3 seconds, a driver will travel 61 feet. That's, the equivalent of 10 6'1" men. I mean, it's a pretty big, it's a pretty big, pretty large distance there. And in reality, to fully stop, we need a football field, or 391 feet to actually fully stop. So while I'm speeding, what's happening is that I'm contributing to 33% of all fatal accidents across the board. So, I mean, we just, as humans, we don't have the ability to react when speed is involved. So let's look at these some deeper accident statistics. A 1% increase in speed increases your driver's chance of an accident by 2%. Serious injury increases by 3%, and your chance of fatality increases by almost 4%. I mean, that's pretty severe for just a 1% increase in speed. If we look at driving 80 miles an hour when traffic is driving at 70, which certainly happens on many of the roads in the United States, we're now increasing our chance of a crash by 31%, crashes with injury by 49%, and a fatality by 71%. My theory here is that just speeding doesn't pay. I mean, the cost of accidents is incredibly expensive in the world today. I mean, a fender bender is $20,000 and a fatality is $1 to $2 million statistically. It just doesn't seem to make sense that we don't put things in place to help drivers maintain it all. So hashtags are one of my favorite things. So hashtag, what does it all mean? Well, it means that you can take that key equation to the beginning of the presentation. If we can figure out how to save on fuel and we can figure out how to reduce idling, it will increase safety. Well, if I manage fuel by not speeding, I reduce my risk of accidents. I reduce the cost of insurance claims against the company. I reduce the cost of fuel. If I look at idling, I can decrease my overall maintenance costs. That was the number two reason why most people looked at fuel and looked at idling reduction technologies. If I reduce idling, I can reduce the opportunity of theft. So to me, that's what it truly, truly all means. So your top cost impacts to your fleet are simple when you look at this presentation today. It's fuel usage from speeding. It's fuel usage from idling. It's increased maintenance intervals specifically from idling, although speeding is truly, truly a contributor as well. There's a huge increase in your risk of accidents. And again, accidents, according to the latest statistics, are about $20,000 for a fender bender and anywhere from $1 to $2 million for a fatality. And of course, last but not least, theft. I've yet to see someone prove to me that you can idle without the keys in the ignition. And that's always one of those things that is a challenge. So what would I do if it was me and I was heading into 2017? Well, I would do two things. I would stop speeding, and I would stop unnecessary idling. There are some vehicles that need to idle. There are some tasks that have to be performed as part of a power takeoff during idling. But I would consciously make a decision within my fleet to do these two things so that I could make sure that my drivers get home safe every day. Well, how do you do that? Well, you do it using something called telematics. Telematics is a two-part system. One, there's a box that goes into the vehicle and plugs into the ECM, or the electronic control module, and that, through real-time communications, feeds information back to back-end software. And that software allows you to monitor vehicles, as well as drivers, as well as even proactively change driver behavior in real time through using buzzers to let them know that the behavior that they have experienced is not appropriate or approachable. So how do you get yourself involved in telematics? Well, these days it's pretty easy. And as part of the Omnitracs family, we offer a telematics box. And I'm happy to say right now that we actually have a huge special going on. So you can actually get 5 free months of our telematics units when you sign up today. So I think that we're going to go ahead and move over to Q&A, and Kate's going to help us out with that Q&A.
Yeah, thank you so much, Cindy, and thanks to everyone attending today's webcast. I want to remind you, if you have questions for Cindy while we have her here, please type those into the Q&A section, and I will field those for her. A couple of things that have come up generally in the past, and we've had questions around how can someone in the office be alerted of a speeding incident or of an idling incident? How do those notifications get shared back to people in the office?
That's a good question. It's really easy these days. I mean, we all live on our smartphones. We all live on our PCs, tablets, or whatever it might be. Telematics products in the market today can easily send both text messages as well as emails to folks based upon criteria that's important to you to alert you to know when someone is speeding or they've gone off route or they have had a harsh driving event. It's very easy to monitor these days in real time.
Excellent. Thank you. As far as what types of events can be reported, we talked a lot about speeding and idling. Are there any specifics outside of that or in addition to those two that can be reported as critical events?
Of course. I mean, obviously, the harsh events, rapid accelerations, harsh braking, harsh cornering. I would say that those are three things that are almost as equally as important as monitoring both speeding and idling. They're going to increase the maintenance on your vehicles. They're going to increase, the use of consumable products, and inherently they're very unsafe. Harsh braking, rapid acceleration in combination with somebody who's a speeder, kind of looking at a scorecard and ranking and rating drivers, statistically, that is the number one person that's going to get into an accident in the next 6 months.
Excellent. Great. So thank you. Question here just came in. We will be sharing the presentation, and I can get anyone a copy of this as well. The recording will be shared. But just another item, as far as access, so you can get alerts and notifications about these events. What about being able to report or track trends related to these events? So if you wanted to know if there was a particular offender over the course of time.
Sure, yeah. Everyone has a bad day once in a while where they might speed a little bit or they might have a harsh braking event. We're not so worried about somebody that has one or two events over the course of a month. What we truly want to understand is somebody who is consistently driving the vehicle in a bad pattern behavior. Or you want to know about Joe the driver who's had 52 speeding events in a week, 22 harsh braking events, and 17 harsh cornering events. You want to be able to identify those trends. Something else that people don't realize is that, we can also pull diagnostic codes. So you can look at vehicles and really understand trends per vehicle as well. Which vehicles get sicker over time.
Great. Very, very good. As far as how you go about acquiring telematics and what setting a telematics program up would look like, can you speak to that a little bit?
Sure. Telematics has really evolved over the last 15 years. It used to be a very hard, hairy installation, lots of wires, having to go to ignitions and grounds and all these things. Today, you literally take a box and plug it into the ODB2 port or the J1708, J1939, kind of that Deutsch 6-pin or 9-pin. You plug it in, wait for the lights to go on, and then you're ready to go in the software. And in the software, it's as easy as putting in how many vehicles do you have, what type of vehicles are they, and who's driving them. And then the third step would be just setting up the exceptions that you want to get in real time. But then you'll be able to see GPS breadcrumb trail of where your drivers are. You'll be able to know, from a trend perspective, who the worst drivers are, who the best drivers are, because we should reward those best drivers. Really being able to understand the data and how in where you can make improvements, whether it's by drivers or piece of equipment within your fleet.
Excellent, thank you. Now, is there any specific company size or type of company that would benefit more from a telematics product, or is this something that everyone can benefit from?
Well, I think everybody can benefit from it, and we're starting to see that even now with the insurance companies even offering it for consumers. Progressive does, and some of those other insurance companies, they have a small dongle that they want you to put in your vehicle so they can observe your driving over a period of time. What we really want is to help people make their drivers safer, and by making them safer, we truly believe that you can make your fleet more efficient from a cost perspective. It doesn't matter whether you have one vehicle or you have 7,000 vehicles.
All right, that's great. Thank you. So another question, how do you recommend presenting key performance indicators or reports to the drivers, and how do you incorporate positive reinforcement?
Sure. No, that's a good question, too. I believe telematics works hand in hand with a two-pronged program. One, about safety, talking about safety and showing that, you're not just talking about it, that as a company, you want to be safe. I think that's number one. And then number two, I think that you have to look at it in a positive environment, and I see so many driver bonus programs that are based on kind of no facts. Now you have the ability to actually reward those people that are great drivers. If you remember, UPS actually does a full-page double-spread ad every year in USA Today. And they do that to recognize the drivers that have been accident-free and incident-free, throughout the entire year. And they're huge, huge users of telematics, by the way. Not any secret to anybody if you just go out and Google UPS and telematics. But I think you use positive reinforcement, you use good driver bonusing programs, but if you really have somebody that's a problem, you need to counsel them appropriately too and give them the appropriate retraining that they need in order to be successful in your organization. Somebody may do something quote unquote bad or wrong, but it's only because they don't know any better, or maybe they're unfamiliar with how to drive that particular truck. There's so many other ways to look at it, but my favorite way to do this is to combine it with a bonus program that is related to safety, and then if I take it 2 or 3 steps further, also that's relative to route performance, how well they've performed on their route.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Cindy. And thank you so much to everyone for your great questions. So we are going to wrap up. I quickly want to remind everyone of this special limited promotion, which is a really significant discount. Again, 5 free months of Omnitracs RoadNet Telematics. Obviously, you see here that includes hardware, software, training, and airtime. We have a team of experts here ready to help you answer any questions or set up a custom demo. You can contact us at this number or feel free to reach out to us via this email address as well. But I greatly appreciate your time and participation, and Cindy, thank you as well. And we look forward to talking to you and hearing from you soon. Take care.